conference on the topic of post-COVID-19 trend in global economy. Before we start this conference, I'd like to express my warmest welcome to all of you. Actually, this video conference is the first item for the cooperation between University of Malaysia, Kelantan, and University of International Business and Economics. As we all know, this pandemic has deeply influenced and changed the world and everyone's life. And the situation is still serious, and hard time is not over yet. During the past several months, our partners, including all of you, have taken a series of measures to protect the faculties and students, to contribute to the research which can benefit to the people suffering in this pandemic disease. And today, we would like to express our warmest gratitude to all participants and partners in this conference. And it's also a good opportunity for us to communicate with each other, to see what we have done and what we are going to do in the fields of international academic collaboration. I also would like to take this opportunity to share with scholars and friends from Malaysia some information about UIBE. UIBE, we can see the University of International Business and Economics, founded in the year of 1951. It's one of the first 2-1-1 project universities and one of the first double world-class universities in China. As a multidisciplinary university with a focus on business studies and international studies, the UIBE is engaged in education and research in 6 sets of disciplines, including economics, management, law, arts, science, and applied science. Among the direction of this double world-class development, UIBE aims to build up a cluster of disciplines focused on open economy, which is based on applied economics. And also integrates traditionally strong disciplines, such as international economics and trade, finance, international law, business administration, accounting, and business foreign languages. Internationalized operations of university and serving China's opening up policy are the 2 most important characteristics of UIBE. In the best Chinese university ranking, SJU ranking, UIBE has consecutively topped among the business and economics-oriented universities during the past 3 years. And in THE University Impact Ranking of 2020, according to the 17 goals by UN, the Sustainable Development, UIBE ranked the 4th among all Chinese universities. UIBE Business School has been accredited with 3 international certifications, including AACSB, EQUIS, and AMBA. I do hope scholars and students from Malaysia, from internationally, can visit UIBE after this pandemic. Now, please allow me to transfer the microphone to partner Dr. Wee, and who can from UMK, who can share with us the introduction of UMK. Thank you very much, Dr. Wee, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lee, for the opening remarks and also a brief introduction about UIBE. It's certainly a very impressive profile, and it is an honor for University Malaysia Kelantan to work together with UIBE today. Allow me to share very quickly a corporate video of UMK so that we can proceed further to the forum discussion. So I will now share less than a 5-minute corporate video of UMK. Do enjoy. Thank you.
University Malaysia Kelantan, UMK, is an entrepreneurial university. We implement the government's aspiration to ensure the younger generation are not only highly educated, but also entrepreneurial. Our mission is to become the #1 entrepreneurial university in Malaysia by 2023, in ASEAN by 2026, and in Asia by 2030. This is in line with the National Entrepreneurship Policy, which aims to make Malaysia an entrepreneurial country by 2030. According to this vision, UMK ensures the whole university functions within an entrepreneurial ecosystem. This ecosystem comprises of 9 faculties, including the Language Centre, supported by institutes and centres of excellence, implemented with the discipline of innovation-based entrepreneurship. The university's upper management, together with UMK employees at all levels, are committed to realizing UMK as a Malaysian public university, well respected for its foundation of entrepreneurship. Implementing this ecosystem, the University Malaysia Kelantan Entrepreneurship Institute, UMKEI, oversees 3 other entrepreneurship-based centres: the Centre for Entrepreneurship Development Education, CEED, the Institute of Small and Medium Enterprises, ISME, and the Global Entrepreneurship Research and Innovation Centre, GERIC. The Faculty of Entrepreneurship and Business, spearheading this structure, has successfully developed collaborative entrepreneurial networks such as a Frontier Street, the Entrepreneurial Advisory Council, the Entrepreneurship Committee, and Gerak Gempor Kusahawana. From the academic aspect, UMK offers 25 undergraduate programs and 16 postgraduate programs in the fields of business and tourism, science and technology, as well as arts and heritage. The university is constantly enhancing its teaching and learning system to ensure that the process of learning takes place creatively and innovatively through My Academic Integrated System, MyICE, massive open online courses, MOOC, and blended learning. UMK is committed to the development of first-class graduates to become the leaders of industry. Collaboration with world-class local corporate sectors, as well as a network of well-known regional educational institutions, is aimed at empowering UMK from various angles. This is evidenced by the increase in the marketability of graduates and graduates who create jobs through businesses. Research, innovation, and commercialization is another important part of UMK. Research funding and the number of innovations and commercialized products increase every year. UMK has excelled in various prestigious competitions. With the hashtag UMK for Society, UMK is also involved in various community activities. Our staff and students consistently demonstrate outstanding skills and abilities. Such a great spirit of teamwork, UMK has never looked back to emerge as a respected educational entity in the region. We at UMK believe that our presence will give a new look to the development of a valley of knowledge. Indeed, our core entrepreneurship will always make us, University Malaysia Kelantan, relevant, unique, and different.
Okay, so that is a very quick virtual tour that we could bring UIBE colleagues and also participants today to have a quick look on how and what UMK looks like. we would like to personally welcome all of you to physically visit our university one day after the pandemic is contained. So as shown in the university, our university embraces entrepreneurship, where all the courses and disciplines pursued by the students cut across the philosophy of entrepreneurship. And research and innovation has brought about many production of in-house commercialized products, which we would like to showcase personally to all the partners worldwide. And so without further ado, I would like to pass the screen to Dr. Lee so that we can kick off the meeting today, the webinar today. Thank you very much, Dr. Lee.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Wee. Actually, it's very impressive and it's a very good answer to the question by Professor John Gong just before the conference, and very beautiful and a very high quality and great reputation in Malaysia, in ASEAN country, in Asia, and even the world. And it's our honor to establish the cooperation relationship with UMK as well. And as you mentioned, that in the near future, and I think the faculty and students may start the exchange program and to communicate with each other. Thank you very much. Actually, from the video, I also see some familiar faces. Actually, it's very impressive of us, and I also would like to express my gratitude during the visit in year of 2018 by the leaders of UMK. We have a very good, very productive meeting during the time when the delegation of UIBE visited Malaysia. Thank you very much. And now let's move to the webinar part. And the first panel is by Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Maud Rafi Jacob from UMK. And now the topic is about the post-COVID-19 changed world. Thank you very much. Now the floor is yours. Please.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lee. To our respected organizer from UIBE, Honorable Professor Dr. Boon Ziong, School of International Trades and Economics, also Professor Dr. Lu Yu, China Institute of WTO Studies, also together with us today, Mr. Azihar Abdullah, Director of Education Malaysia Beijing, Prof. Dr. Nick Maheran, Director of UMK Institute, Entrepreneurship Institute, also International Office Director, Dr. BUG, and a team, Madam Ko and Mr. Hafiz, and all fellow colleges from China, from Malaysia, including our friends from Asia country, from Indonesia, Philippines, and Thailand, and ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum and very good morning. As we all know, COVID-19 started as a health crisis, later quickly evolved into a global economic pandemic at a speed and magnitude we have not seen in our lifetime. The ripple effects are still unfolding on a global scale, and it is unlikely that a true impact of this pandemic can be measured until the situation stabilizes. But once we come up with this challenging and uncertain time, we hope to see the better future. So I pose three important questions here. First, how will we recover? Second, what we go back to business as usual? And three, we see enduring changes at the individual, organizational, and government level. Ladies and gentlemen, according to KPMG, International Consultant of Malaysia, all organizations, we undergo 4 stages that align the path through the recovery. First one, reaction. Second one, resilient. Third one, recovery. And the fourth one, new reality, means a new norms. As for reaction, as we all know, all organizations across the world are simultaneously impacted as professional and personal life are disrupted. Volatility and uncertainty permit society as primary focus is on limiting damage to life and livelihood as we weather the unprecedented storm of COVID-19 pandemic. Secondly, as for the resilient, control loosen as contagious spread is contained, consumer demands begins to return, but is restrained by losses wages, investment loss, and recession fear. The third phase, the recovery phase. So anxiety even the past, but investment and consumer sentiment cautiously improve, slowly improve. Recovery path for organization will be varied based on the ability for them to limit damage from the first stage. But the length and severity of recession post-COVID-19 industry demand and willingness to adapt to the new, for example, changing environment. As the new reality, so several enduring shifts we main post-recovery as many learn behavior born out of the crisis will become centered to the new norms. Either we, for example, like to say it's not, but it's considered as the new norms nowadays. So we found that the onset of COVID-19 has exposed existing weak links across industry, government, and in our economy. So the agency and the importance of addressing these fragmented links have radically shifted, and in many decisions and discussion have been brought forward. These are opportunities for all to move forward actually. Being part of UMK as entrepreneur university, where we fully embrace entrepreneurship as our main thrust, I would like to discuss this given topic in a positive light, in a positive manner, where highlighting the opportunities and the silver lining faced by COVID-19. Ultimately, we must move on. The economy continue to revive or regenerate after it falls to a certain extent. We hope that recuperating process will slowly take over. We know that after the world, after the COVID-19, we're likely to return to the world no longer to return the world that was actually. Many trends already underway in the global economy are being accelerated by the impact of the pandemic. This is especially true when we look at the digital economy with the rise of digital behavior such as remote working and learning as what we are experiencing now throughout the world, telemedicine and also delivering services. And the future of the world has arrived faster along with these challenges. Many of them potentially multiple, such as income polarization, worker vulnerability, mortgage work, and the need for workers to adapt to occupational transitions. There are many cases that professional, in our case, a pilot turned to be the economy involved in delivery foods to their customer. This acceleration is a result of not only technological advances, but also new considerations for health and safety, and economies and labor market will take time to recover. So this effect range from attitude about efficiency versus resilience and the future of capitalism and densifications of the economic activity and living industry policy, our approach to the problem that affect us all and call for the global and collective action. This effect, as we know, give, for example, us to ponder actually. So as history has shown, choices made during crisis can shape the world for decades to come. But a good thing is we come together for the first time. For example, people in this, for example, fragile planet come together fighting this unseen enemy actually. So what is remain critical is the need for collective action to build economies that deliver inclusive economic growth, prosperity, and safe for all actually. Secondly, remote work actually. It is likely to become common nowadays. We had some evidence that working from home is at least productive at working at the office. When we started to introduce working from home, some refused, but after some time they get used of it, and now hard for them to come to the office. However, many companies were reluctant to embrace remote work. Now that many have tried it with good result, remote work might be here to stay. The pandemic crisis has accelerated at the pace of digital transformation, with further expansion in e-commerce and increases in the pace of adoption of telemedicine, video conferencing, and online teaching. And I believe, if not because of the COVID, we are not here this morning talking each other through teleconferencing. Companies with international companies with international supply chain are dealing with shortages and bottleneck. We are likely to see many of these companies reshore some of their production. Unfortunately, this trend will not create many jobs because most of the production is likely to be automated. Government across the globe will be bigger after playing the role in insurer and investor of the last resorting during the crisis. So the most important lesson from the COVID-19 pandemic is the importance of working together on the problem created by, as I said earlier, the unseen enemy that affect the entire human race. We are much stronger united than divided. Another important trend that has been taken is deglobalization. The logistic difficulties brought to light by the current crisis are already pointing to a shift away from global just-in-time supply chains. Yet, as economic difficulties mount, the inevitable growth of nationalism and my nation-first policy will push companies to localize a business operation that favor national and regional supply chains, not entirely bad news for the local economy, which has had hard time to compete globally. World trade is expected to contract between 30% and 32% in 2020, which not only indicates finished good, but also material and component used in industrial production. The reliance on international supply chains may start to be seen as riskier than sourcing product and component locally, as a border becomes barrier to the free flow of material. Achieving security in the supply of component for production will not be easy to achieve without anticipating inventory build up or shortage. So local production chains may be considered more favorably than before. The repair economy and local macro industries may also be valued for providing a reliable supply of product within reach compared to a long supply chain delivering a cheaper good. Simply put, if we take a pause and reflect, the crisis then is a revelation in a far more literal sense, focusing on our collective attention on the many injustices and weaknesses that already exist in how we live together. If people were blind to these faults before, it is hard not to see them now. So what will the world look like after COVID-19? we pose the question. So here, many of the problems we face in the next decade will simply be more extreme versions of those that we already confront today. The world will only look significantly different this time if we emerge from the crisis. We decide to act to resolve this problem and bring about fundamental change. There are the opportunities to change, to be better. It is too early to say whether this change will, after pandemic, will get back to normal and return to previous level of consumption. In terms of services, some will be lost, while other interconnected and dependent ones, such as travel and leisure, may take a bit longer time to recover. However, the involuntary digital transformation is likely to let organizations continue to encourage remote working more than ever before. Cautions and time taking to build confidence to socialize may also play a role. The balance between productivity and cost saving seems to present, but does not suggest a likely reversal of the trend. We are yet to know what the new norms will be. Going through the pandemic, we changed the way we think and our attitude towards risk. We need to rise above the crisis with the next level of thinking to reshape the formulations of new economy so that it is more environmentally conscious and responsible before, where we took environmentally issues for granted and we also underestimated their consequences. In conclusions, COVID-19 puts constraints on the current economic model. We are likely to see a new operating model emerging from our economies. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the many challenges and hurdles ahead, Malaysia is relatively fortunate and be lucky enough to be able to count on Malaysia-China decades-long diplomatic ties. China-Malaysia friendly exchanges and official diplomatic relations started 46 years ago. We indeed the first among Asian countries to establish relationships with China. Today, we stand tall and enjoy the fruitful cooperation between both countries in various fields, benefiting the people of both nations in tangible manners. Such blessed diplomatic ties have resulted from the endless, continuous effort of successive China and Malaysia leaders working together throughout the decade. And we continue to adhere to the principles of mutual equality, respect, trust, and sincerity. This is the essence of working together. When Malaysia is battling against the widespread of coronavirus, Malaysia was visited by the 8 expert team members organized by the China National Health Commission and selected by the Health Commissions of Guangdong Province. They share China's successful experiences in fighting the pandemic. And during our national lockdown, which known as Movement Control Order (MCO), we received a consignment of COVID-19 medical equipment from China in late March. The consignment was handed over to our Foreign Minister, Datuk Sri Samuddin Hussein, by Your Excellency Ambassador to Malaysia, by Tian. So we received 100,000 units of novel coronavirus nucleic acid diagnostic kits, also face masks, pieces of surgical masks, personal protective equipment, and also 200 ventilators where we need most at our hospital. With this support, allow me to express Malaysia's deep appreciation for China's invaluable support. Needless to mention, China and Malaysia have been going strong informing strategic collaboration. Worth to highlight here are the Chinese Finance East Coast Rail Link, ECRL, as well as One Belt, One Road over construction project. For your information, Kelantan is situated at the east coast of Peninsular Malaysia, where we are lagging behind. We are considered as among the poorest, for example, region in the state, where our transportation systems stay, for example, lagging behind compared with Kuala Lumpur. So the establishments of East Coast Rail, we, for example, accelerate, for example, our movement of people, a good from rich region. We are rich with minerals, with gold, ores, and we have very beautiful islands, so people can easily, for example, mobile from capital city Kuala Lumpur to Kelantan. And for your information, if you see from the maps, Kelantan is the nearest, for example, state to China actually, because we are situated in the east, for example, coast side of Peninsular Malaysia. So with Malaysia approaching our target as a developed nation in the year 2030, before this we, for example, set 2020, but because of the hurdle, we postponed, for example, to 2030. The level of Malaysian citizens' awareness toward the entrepreneurship is vital in determining the economic achievement of the country, which attributes to the global prosperity. Working with the community of all levels in the society and all partners internationally, including the universities, especially well-established universities such as UIBE and other agencies in China, it is an important element to ensure sustainable growth, development, and prosperity of Asia region, let alone university students and staff. On the basis of this idea that I mentioned just now, we welcome all colleagues and community in UIBE China to visit us. You are welcome at any time at our university, University Malaysia Kelantan, to form strategic collaboration through student, staff, and as well as program exchange. Please be ensured that the concept of entrepreneurship education embraced by our university are constantly improving to produce industry-relevant graduates as well as to facilitate the interest in business startup. At UMK, we strongly promote entrepreneurial thinking through the teachings of entrepreneurship across faculties, blended with experiential learning, where we capitalize on technological advancement beside having on-campus and off-the-campus business. Another important element is the acquisitions of the third language and development of entrepreneur as a soft skill are made mandatory. For your information, Mandarin is the most popular language among our students. Research excellence at the university is well supported and governed through 4 Centers of Excellence and remarkable research achievement have been accomplished in the area of entrepreneurship, innovation, food security, sustainable culture, poverty education, artificial intelligence, and big data. Ladies and gentlemen, the fight is not yet over. The debate is endless. In a prolonged battle against the pandemic, let us capitalize on the strengths of one another, particularly in the case of UMK, working closely and through the expertise of your renowned professor, we can march progressively toward the post-COVID-19, the change world. Okay, with that, I end my talk. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Jacob. And thank you very much for your speech. And I hope our two universities can develop such kind of collaboration and the environment, the very good relationship between China and Malaysia. And as you mentioned that, and to improve, it's to change. To be perfect, it's change often. We just faced to such kind of COVID-19 pandemic, but we also need to find some opportunities and to get through such kind of environment and difficulties. Thank you very much. Now let's move to panel 2, speech given by Professor Dr. Gong Jiong, who is a very famous professor in China. Actually, you can see from TV. You can see him from TV very often in CGTN, in some other TV stations. You can see Professor Gong Jiong to give his comments and to offer us a lot of very famous TV programs. And the topic for today is re-globalization versus de-globalization in the post-pandemic world. Now the floor is yours, Professor Gong.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks a lot to Professor Lee, and thanks a lot to University of Malaysia at Kelantan. It's a great pleasure to be here. And I've been to Malaysia many times actually, but unfortunately I've never been to that part of Malaysia. I hope to go someday. Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to skip all the courtesies and go straight to the content of this presentation. About 15 minutes to go through, so bear with me for a second. So my topic today is about re-globalization versus deglobalization. Now, there's a lot of talk about deglobalization these days, but in my view, I think deglobalization is read wrongly. In other words, there are changes with respect to globalization that are somehow perceived by a lot of experts in international media as deglobalization. And I will start first with analysis of what's going on, what are the driving forces of the current changes with respect to globalization. The first fundamental reason is that global supply chain adjustment has been already happening prior to the pandemic, and also mostly due to the rising cost industrial adjustment in China. Today in China, as we talk about globalization or deglobalization, mostly people here are talking about the global value chain or the global supply chain, with a large part of it being located in China, starting to see some adjustment in the sense that a lot of them are starting to move out of China. And that's what people see as the risk of, quote, deglobalization. And I think this is actually quite normal, that the globalization or the global supply chains movement will indeed move on its own, for various reasons. And I will talk about in more details later on. The second reason is because of the Sino-US Trade War. Because deglobalization is almost exclusively initiated by the Trump administration in the United States. We can see the declining trade volume between China and the US ever since President Trump started to impose tariffs on Chinese exports, starting in the middle of 2017, and has been ongoing for almost about 2 years already. And we're starting to see trade volume gradually declining between China and US, both in terms of exports and imports. We're also starting to see some, and I would even say many multinationals companies operating in China start to adopt to a new model called China's Plus One model, which means that they have their China operation catering to the Chinese market, but they also plan to have another additional operation somewhere out of China, catering to the US market and also other parts of the globe. That's another reason that's been happening, clearly happening. And another thing is that the concepts of national economic security, national health security start to be very popular these days. Corporate America's reshoring movement, especially for products related to defense, medical supply, pharmaceutical products, and semiconductors and these types of products. We're starting to see companies answering to the call from the US government to somehow reshore part of the operations back to the United States. A fourth issue that's very important is that this has to be viewed in the context of what's called the Thucydides trap. It's mostly a geostrategic play by Washington vis-a-vis China. In history, United States government is very wary about any other economies or other countries growing so large as to be, somewhere between 70 or 60% of US GDP. And in that regard, the United States is very likely to take actions to somehow contain the other components to prevent it from surpassing the United States. Past precedents include, US actions against Russia, against Japan. So now it's coming to China's turn. Today, China's GDP accounts about 70 to 75% of America's GDP. But post-pandemic, my prediction is that percentage is going to increase rapidly for two reasons. One is that, if you look at the GDP statistics this year, China announced a 3.2% GDP for the second quarter, and we're projected to grow much faster than that for the rest of the year. Whereas in the United States, the recently announced GDP figure is a decline of almost double digits, close to 10% decline. This is the first reason. The second reason is the dollar's long-term depreciation, as a result of quantitative easing, basically printing money in Washington. The U.S. Treasury doesn't have much of a choice, basically, because U.S. consumers, people in the United States, are really facing very difficulties, just even by keeping food on the table and also maintaining a shelter. There's a recent report saying that 40% of tenants in the U.S. face the risk of eviction in the next few months. So, the U.S. government has to help these people. And the only way to help is just basically issue paychecks, welfare checks, and by printing money, given U.S. government's huge load of domestic debt already. So dollar is projected to depreciate over the long run. And if you combine both factors, you will see, I would project that China's GDP will be close to 80% of a US GDP very shortly. And also there's another entirely different view of the relationship between manufacturing and innovation. There's a strong emphasis on making manufacturing happening again in the United States. Today, US manufacturing component of the GDP is around something like 11%, very small. It's mostly a service-oriented economy. And there's a lot of reckoning about the relationship between manufacturing and innovation, how innovation is indispensable with manufacturing. The whole idea of keeping manufacturing in China while keeping a R&D center in Silicon Valley is entirely wrong, according to people like Robert Atkinson and Peter Navarro. In addition to that, people like Peter Navarro postulates that its manufacturing is very special. It has an impact not just on innovation, but also an impact on adjacent service sectors, an impact on jobs and neighborhood communities. So it's imperative for the U.S. to bring these manufacturing operations back to home. So this is a very important reason why there's a concerted effort from the U.S. government to try to basically whip corporate America's operation in China out of China, if not back to the U.S., but at least to other countries, say Vietnam, Mexico. These are two countries, in my view, that have been standing to benefit most out of the recent developments. And of course, COVID-19 really enforces that view, the view of supply autarky, basically, mostly of medical and other pandemic fighting products. we're seeing many countries talking about this. Interestingly, even including some, small-size economies. And I think this is a very short phenomenon. It's basically a supply shock to the long-term equilibrium, and will go away as the COVID-19 goes away. Well, I need to point out that globalization is fundamentally economics at work. What we are seeing, and what we're perceived as deglobalization are mere changes, short-term changes within the long trend of globalization. Long-run equilibrium is determined by factor prices, resource endowments, and human capital. These are basic economic factors that are very hard to fight against. Things are not going to change based on these political considerations. Most of the deglobalization observations are related to the Trump administration, which appears to be running out of steam. I want to spend a few minutes talking about U.S. election. I did spend some time analyzing this. As probably many of you know already, the U.S. election is basically determined by a few what we call swing states. These are 6 states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida, Arizona, and North Carolina. In order to get into the White House, you need 270 votes. And aside from the blue states, deep blue states or shadow blue state votes, basically you need 39 votes coming from these 6 states, which means that you either have 6 states, you either have 3 out of the 6 states, barring Florida, or you have Florida plus one of these 6 swing states. Okay. Now Trump is trading in double digits, almost double digits in Michigan and Pennsylvania, most likely trading slightly in Wisconsin and Florida, while Arizona and North Carolina are currently neck to neck. So in my view, we have less than 100 days left. I don't think he's going to change the tide in a big way. So I think he's destined to lose. He's going to be gone. He might do some drastic things in the next 100 days or so before he is gone, but I think it's already too little too late. I think his fate is sealed. He's going to receive back to the Trump Tower in New York City. Most of the criticism of the global supply chain susceptibility to COVID-19, in my opinion, is basically a question of China's reliability and resilience. We have to face the fact that a lot of the global supply chain and as well as manufacturing activities are based in China, particularly with respect to medical supplies related to COVID-19 fighting course. Now, looking back, I think the answer is a resounding yes. We had some initial problems, probably not lasting more than 2 or 3 weeks in late February and early March. And getting to April, most of China's operations, manufacturing activities coming back to normal. So I think looking back, there was a very short period of time of doubt about China's ability to answer to the global supply chain sustainability. But after that, China recovered very quickly, and I think the answer to China's reliability and resilience is a resounding yes. As I said, medical and pharmaceutical supply autarky is a short-term demand shock that most small and medium-sized countries could not, and I think should not address on its own. Post-pandemic issue will be gone very quickly. So I want to talk a little bit about this issue about supply chain moving out of China, because it's a big issue. A lot of talk and a lot of debates about this issue here in China. My view is that, first of all, it's economics at work, as I've already mentioned. As a matter of fact, from an academic economic perspective, there's a school of thought called New Economic Geography View, pioneered by Krugman and a few other people starting from the 1990s, talking about the industrial clustering movement phenomena. Their theory is that dispersion and agglomeration forces would work together, interact together to create a hump-shaped industrial clustering curve, which means the world's manufacturing center migrate historically. Historically migrate from Europe to North America. That is basically, the textile industry, during the Industrial Revolution time, and later manufacturing moved from North America to Northeast Asia, mostly Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, and later to China. It's been staying in China for 30 years, and we know that's not going to stay in China forever. So the question is about, where it's going to move to. And my view is that there's not a clear answer right now that it will be moving, pointedly at one particular region. But I think Southeast Asia and South Asia could be a very good candidate. As a matter of fact, China's outward direct investment movement has already been happening for some time. Global value chain starting to move out of China, starting from labor-intensive sectors, was already happening before COVID-19, and also before the Sino-US Trade War started in 2017. Very good example, Samsung. Samsung used to be a big player in China, particularly in the handset manufacturing industry. But today, Samsung's handset manufacturing industry is totally gone in China. It's gone to Vietnam, and it's gone to Vietnam together with many of its supply chain vendors, including Chinese companies. And this is driven by rising labor costs, rising land costs in China, a changing consumer preferences, and also a government-driven industrial upgrade strategy policy. In addition to that, as you know, China has this Belt and Road Initiative. It also contains an element of what's called capacity transfer to developing countries, contributing to also some ODI movements. I have some slides to support my view. This is a slide about ODI and IDI, inward-outward FDI movement out of China into China. As you can see, IDI has been declining while ODI has been climbing rapidly in recent years. And this is a slide about the composition of ODI out of China. And we're seeing, this is 2 or 3 years ago, we see that manufacturing is still quite small portion of this. A lot of the investments is related to, for example, real estate business, real estate investments, mining industries, financial businesses, and transport and storage, these type of things. But the trend is that manufacturing component is increasing very rapidly. Let's talk about multinationals operations in China. And I think their movement out of China is already happening. Part of their movement out of China is already happening if it's under plan or on a drawing board, if not, still hasn't happened. I cite 2 recent surveys. One is Gartner survey of 260 companies. They show that 33% of them have already or are in the process of moving some of their operations out of China within the next 3 years. And the reason is not just COVID-19. UBS, that's a Swiss bank, also had a survey of 450 manufacturers in China. This survey includes some Chinese companies as well. Shows that 76% of them have plans to move part of their operations out of China. 85% among Asian companies. I would conjecture that many of these companies are Japanese companies, and 60% of them among Chinese companies. So I also want to point out that when we talk about multinational companies moving out of China, I mean part of their operations moving out of China. This is because China still remains a very attractive place to do business due to its very large market size. China being the largest consumer market in the world, still a very attractive place for doing business and selling things to the Chinese markets. So they're not going to move out entirely. They're going to move out partly. And I think new investments, new foreign direct investments in China are going after the Chinese domestic markets. And the days of using China as a base for exports purpose, as a base for supplying to the rest of the world, it's probably gone, in my view. And this is also exacerbated by US and Japanese governments' policy, incentive policies to encourage their companies to move out. And also, in particular, I want to mention the State Department's Economic Prosperity Network. I want to make a small note here. The Trump administration is very big about driving American companies out of China, and it seems that this is the contributing reason. America's companies operating in China is a contributing reason for every problem in the United States. Which of course is totally ridiculous. But the point is that the State Department, headed by Mike Pompeo, appears to be, in my view, way ahead of the Trump administration. I call him his personal China policy agenda. He has the many things. I won't go into details about this. Very briefly, for example, Pompeo has been going around the world promoting other governments not to use, for example, Huawei's 5G equipment. I'm pretty sure he has gone to Malaysia to do the same thing, and I hope Malaysian government won't listen to him. Huawei's equipment is cheap and much better. That's a proven technology. But in any case, the recent baby project, poster project coming from the State Department is what's called Economic Prosperity Network. It's basically a cross-country, cross-company alliance to attempt to drive global supply chains out of China. Pompeo and his team has contacted Australia, New Zealand, India, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, Mexico, Colombia, and a few of other countries. These are either ally countries or America ally countries, or countries that are meant to be at the receiving ends of this purpose. I also point out a Brookings report entitled "Preparing the United States for the Superpower Marathon with China." So, this is in the context of basically a strategic geopolitical strategy coming from Washington, trying to basically contain China. In my opinion, it's a long-term competition, but that's okay. Competition is okay. It's a long-term competition about technology, about innovation. At the sense of this, basically. So I want to draw some conclusions. Although China's large market, comprehensive industrial base, and strong human capital still make China a relatively attractive investment place, but new FDI targeting exports and global supply are not likely to come to China anymore. FDI is motivated by China's domestic market. So far, China's Ministry of Commerce hasn't shown definitive statistics of multinationals moving out of China, but usually by the time we see these statistics, it will be already too late. Because moving is not easy, it's not cheap, but once moving is determined, it's irreversible. Moving needs time, particularly needs time to cultivate a supply chain ecosystem. This is probably the bad news for China, but I think this is maybe some good news for other countries. Multinationals moving out of China will take some time, and also will take with them a legion of Chinese indigenous companies as well. We see that's actually already happening in a very big way in Vietnam. Another important reason for multinationals moving out is the rise of Chinese indigenous companies. Multinationals are starting to face strong domestic competition, for example, in the auto sector, in the mobile phone sector, in white appliance, in home entertainment. In these industries, we're seeing many strong Chinese companies keep competing very effectively with their foreign opponents. Faltering of corporate America's China operations makes the balance theory questionable in the future. In other words, the balance theory here with respect to the Sino-US relationship is basically about the economic relationship serving as a ballast for the Sino-US relations. And I think this hypothesis could be questionable in the future. There'll be more coordinated criticism of China model in alliance with Washington, motivated by dubious reasons. And this could be mostly coming out of Europe, in my view. But in response, China will continue to be more open, more welcoming to foreign investment, and will striving to cultivate a more level playing field. In other words, I don't think the Chinese government will bite the bait that the Trump administration will set in the next 100 days or so in order to use China issue as a campaign issue to probably win back, his votes in the coming election. And I don't think that strategy is going to succeed. Today, China's government has a dual recycling policy, both domestic and foreign. Basically, it says that we need to emphasize on the domestic consumption side. And I think historically, this is a strategy that stand ground for a very large economy after going to such a stage. Historically, for example, the United States, after the Civil War, U.S. development is mostly inwards, mostly domestically driven. If you look at the large economic entities, foreign components, the export sector as a percentage of the GDP is actually not very large, compared to the world average of about 28%. Germany, France, UK are fairly large, but for China, for Japan, for US, it's very small, less than 20%. In the US, it's only 12%. And in extreme case, I did a brief calculation. If in extreme case, if we entirely write off the Sino-Us trade for China, which is a scenario I don't think is going to happen, its impact is only 1.5% of China's GDP. So it's not going to fundamentally, alter China's economic landscape. So I'm going to conclude by saying, what we are seeing, what we perceive as evidence of deglobalization, actually not deglobalization, but a reglobalization, what I call reglobalization in the long run. Supply chain moving out of China is the wrong question to ask, in my opinion. It is the innovation that really matters. It is the companies that really matters. It's the markets that these companies operate in really matters. So I think, the supply chain move out of China, or the idea that global supply chain is under adjustment, is nothing to be afraid of. It's something needs to be embraced of, actually, because reglobalization in the long run is read wrongly as deglobalization in the short run. Globalization is hard to fight against. Reglobalization creates many development opportunities, as I alluded to earlier. I think many countries can probably replicate China's model when China was under development in the 1990s and early 2000s. And I think, as I said, reglobalization will be very much Asia-centric, especially Southeast Asia and Southern Asia. And with that overall message, I'm going to stop here and welcome you to make some comments after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Gong Qiong. Actually, the topic may be continuously very popular in the next several months, even years. And now let's move to another topic is in panel 3, speech given by Professor Dr. Nick Mohammed, Director of UMK Entrepreneurship Institute. Now the floor is yours, Professor.
Sorry, I'll try it again, yeah? Okay, can everybody see my slide?
Yes, Rob. Okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you to our moderator, Dr. Lee from UIBE, and Dr. Wee from UMK for organizing this webinar. And this is considered our first attempt of collaboration between UMK and UIBE, I suppose. And our Honorable Professor Gong and Professor Lu, nice to meet you both. And hope that we can further meet on face-to-face one day after the COVID. Thank you also to our Deputy Vice Chancellors of Academic and Internationalization for supporting this event. And not to forget, we have Mr. Aziz Lau from Education Malaysia in Beijing. He's the one who are connecting Malaysia with China, particularly with UIBE and UMK. And not to forget also to all participants from China, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, and other parts of the world hope this webinar will benefit everyone. So today I just want to share an idea of post-COVID-19 entrepreneurship and financial trend, and a simple proposed model, which I term it as an anticipated model. So, basically, everybody knows how COVID-19 impact global economy. So we all know that COVID-19 began with health crisis, then leading to liquidity crisis in the initial stage, and of course, later on lead to solvency crisis, which led to economic crisis globally. And actually, this is due to the fact that spillover of COVID-19, social distancing or lockdown led to shutdown of financial markets, corporate office, businesses, and events. So due to that, business was stopped, and of course, transaction will not occur. So that is one of the argument by the analysts of why this global economy affected the country and of course the world in general. So secondly is due to consumer being calculated risk. The exponential rate at which the virus was spreading and the heightened uncertainty about how bad the situation led to consumers play safe in consumption and investment. So reducing consumption and investment because of risk-averse attitude of the consumers, also one of the reasons why global economy crisis is actually occurs during the COVID-19. Okay, just a little bit about impact on global economy again with the statistics that have shown that it is estimated that the virus could trim global economic growth by 3% to 6% in 2020. Of course, in 2021 there will be partial recovery, so meaning that we have to anticipate that the economic downturn will still be faced in 2020. But this is with the assumption that there is no second wave of infection. So if there's a second wave of infection, then of course, economic downturn or economic crisis globally will be affected. I mean, bigger, I suppose. And the economic fallout from the pandemic raises the risk of a global economic recession. So if this thing occurs, so we may face global economic recession and increase the numbers of unemployment, which is probably were forecasted to be much more greater than the Great Depression of the 1930s. So this is what the analysts have been saying about impact of global economy due to COVID-19. So COVID-19 impact on entrepreneurship and financial environment is very vast. Okay, so due to COVID-19 pandemic, many businesses have become affected negatively. Okay, due to the needs to cut expenditure, and because of that, many of the businesses are downsizing. And it was also being seen that more than 70% of startups have had to terminate full-time employee. Okay, so since the start of the COVID-19, many companies have been reducing the numbers of staff up to 70%, especially those who are startups, who are just begin to start their business. And many entrepreneurial business has pivoted to meet new needs for goods or service born out of the crisis. So due to COVID-19, also businesses have to think new ways of doing business. So they also have to cater the new needs of the consumers. So innovation, creativity is required due to this pandemic. So entrepreneurship is actually something that have to be beyond what the traditional way of business being done. And therefore, the way entrepreneurial business models and approach has to be changed, and is affected by the pandemic. Therefore, in many ways, entrepreneurship was seen as important and job of choice in the future. So as a University of Entrepreneurship, we were given mandate, we were mandated by the government to see the scenario, how can we turn our graduates from being job seeker to job creator. So because we've seen that among the impact of entrepreneurship phenomena in Malaysia is that most of our graduates has to be part of entrepreneurship element. Okay. Okay, sorry. All right. So another impact on entrepreneurship and financial environment is that the economic impact of global spread of COVID-19 has heightened market risk aversion in ways not seen since the global financial crisis. Actually, people are afraid, people are actually taking to wait and see in terms of involving in share market and also involving in real estate investment and so on. So the risk aversion attitudes is now part of the impact of the pandemic. So if we look at on the Malaysian scenario, so the Malaysian government now expect a drop of gross domestic product of between 8% to 1.2% for 2020. So amounting to a decline of 10.8 billion ringgit Malaysia and 17.3 billion ringgit Malaysia. So this translates to a GDP growth of 3.6 to 4% instead of the earlier forecast of 4.8%. So I think it's not only Malaysia that will face this phenomena, also probably all over the world have been having reducing in terms of their GDP growth. Okay, I would like to share a little bit about the pre-COVID economic collaboration between Malaysia and China. So actually Malaysia and China has been doing a biggest trading collaboration since 4 years ago. So China was Malaysia's biggest trading partner for 4 consecutive years. And Malaysia was China's largest trading partner among Asian countries for 5 years in a row. So this is among the collaboration that we have recently considered. I'll take the data since 2013. We have the Malaysian-China Kuantan Industrial Park, which is officially launched in February 2013, and the 5-year program for economic and trade cooperation 2013-2017, agreement on the establishment of China-Malaysia Quinzhou Industrial Park, and we just complete Penang Second Bridge, which is undertaken by the Chinese company. And of course, currently, there's an issue previously, but now it's settled and will continue the projects. It is ECRL projects. And this one is very much related to Kelantan, and UMK is among the agency that will be connected to this project. So probably later on we can discuss further on this project, how can UIBE and UMK will be further enhanced and help on this ECRL project, especially when we are talking about reglobalization and deglobalization that Prof. Gong has been spoken just now. And this is actually things that I would like to emphasize on the idea of my presentation today. It is about people-to-people exchange. So there is a cooperation between Malaysia and China, which is focusing on people-to-people exchange and cultural cooperation. So if you look at on what they call the education part. So if I don't know whether it's among the OBOR projects or not, but since February 2016, if I'm not mistaken, Xiamen University and New Sunshine Group of Malaysia signed an agreement on setting up a Malaysian campus of Xiamen University. So who knows, in future we have UIBE in Malaysia. And in the same month, a Chinese enterprise signed an agreement with Malaysia Enterprise, deciding to jointly produce a large live-action outdoor show, Impression Melaka, which would stay in Melaka for performance on a long-term basis. So before COVID-19, we have estimated more than about 1 million of Chinese tourists will come to Southeast Asia and Malaysia. So I didn't get the statistics, but Chinese tourists is actually mushrooming everywhere in Southeast Asia, especially in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Genting, and of course historic states like Melaka, Penang, and so on. So if things may not happen like COVID-19, I think the planning will be working tremendously and benefit both countries, Malaysia and China. And of course, there are also a bilateral agreement between the two governments, signed the agreement on science, technology, and innovation cooperation, because we know that China is far ahead on innovation, technology, digitalization, and so on. So we are actually looking up on Chinese experts, particularly in fourth IR or fourth industrial revolution kind of phenomena. Okay. All right. So this is also among the economic impact through Malaysian-China collaboration of post-COVID. So the pre-COVID, we have already established a collaboration whereby there's a lot of projects that have been partnered with China. But for the post-COVID, this is actually probably the idea of the Malaysian government to work with China when the ministers of international ministry announced that in whatever circumstances, APEC 2020 will still be held in November 2020, even though it's on virtual conference or virtual basis. So this hopefully will create more Malaysian-China partnership, because this is the first time that China is actually participating in this APEC 2020. And in the China press, they have stated that the reason behind China's interest to participate in this conference is because, looking at on the people-to-people kind of approach, as well as the cultural aspects on having Malaysia and China working together. So China will make joint efforts with member economy to deepen Asia-Pacific partnership, okay, and achieve concrete results in areas such as regional economic integration, digital economy, connectivity, inclusiveness, and sustainable development. So with the theme of this APEC, that given high interest of China to be part of the partners. So if you look at on the Malaysia-China bilateral trade, for last year, for the first 11 months last year, Malaysia-China bilateral trade has posted about USD 111 billion, which is equivalent to 455 billion, higher than in 2018. So we hope that by 2020, something magic happen, whereby both countries will be benefit, so that it is helping the global economy to be much better with all these transaction between the countries that may occur. Okay. All right. So this is actually the idea that everybody knows with the trend of entrepreneurship and finance, new business environment will occur. Yeah. So to stay competitive, entrepreneurs need to embrace a feasible marketing strategy. So this is also to ensure continuity of business. So therefore, their marketing strategy has to change. And of course, nowadays it has to focus more on the use of digital technology, online network and social media enabler platforms. So this has been studied by many researchers that entrepreneurs has to make optimal use of digital technology and also learn on how to use social media to gain consumers. Yeah, even though social media in China and Malaysia may not be in line. You don't have Facebook like we do. We are not very familiar with WeChat, but we are starting to use the platform of WeChat as well in order to connect with the consumers and so on. And e-commerce is another sector that has beneficial despite being affected by COVID-19 pandemic. So if you look at on Amazon.com, even Alibaba, they have getting advantage of this COVID-19 pandemic. So Amazon has been able to cope with the changing situation. They have, doing tremendous profit because of COVID-19. And of course, Netflix, for the entertainment. So China is also looking at this as part of benefits for them, as well as Malaysia. So the numbers of subscribers for Netflix is increasing, and also popularities of Skype and Zoom has also surged since many organizations have shifted their preferences for these tools instead of face-to-face meetings. So this is actually the phenomena or the new trend that entrepreneurs has to look at in order to be sustained in the business or survive in their business. And so all these three need innovation. So because we know that throughout human history, crisis has been pivotal in developing our societies. So we need crisis, we need crisis because crisis is sometimes give us new way to think, So pandemics essentially have had advanced healthcare system. So this COVID-19 as if you look at on positive, if you look on a positive side, this crisis is actually giving us, to think outside of the box. So this pandemics had advanced healthcare systems, fuel technological innovations, and have advanced technology companies. So even though Uber and Airbnb is actually occurs due to global financial crisis, but we know that after this COVID-19, there will be more advanced technology companies like Uber and Airbnb, because people have to think, people have to be different. And this pandemic also will be expected to rise entrepreneurs' challenge. So in order to survive in this world, in order to be able to compete, and this is among the challenge that entrepreneurs need to be innovative and creative. So therefore, entrepreneurs have to create innovation that shapes society after the crisis. So one of my point of view that I wish to share is that this is the trend that I've looked at on entrepreneurial. So post-COVID-19 trend on entrepreneurship and finance is that companies is now less self-centered. So the idea of corporate citizenship is actually comes out from this phenomena. We look at on the mushrooming of social enterprise. So if we look at on the previous goals of business is to maximize profit or to maximize shareholders' wealth, now people are very much looking on business as to solve the society's problem, or so that's why globally we are emphasizing on SDG, the sustainability development goals. So with that, I've seen that COVID-19 has created different thought among entrepreneurs. So they are more they are having more citizenship behavior, which is of course in entrepreneurship they term it as corporate citizenship. This is partly to build foundation for their future actually. So they need to act during the crisis to shape their firms in the long run. So many firms have initially responded to the crisis, not only by cutting costs, but also by engaging in new entrepreneurial activities, such as showing citizenship. So they are starting to be beyond CSR, to be beyond corporate social responsibilities. They are partly helping not only their internal employees, but also their suppliers, the external parties. So this is things that I've seen the positive side of COVID-19. And during times of crisis, companies demonstrate good citizenship by having interest in societal well-being. And this is partly due to building a reputation for their future. So because this is the case study that I have done with a few companies that really twist their business from what they are doing previously to currently they are more focusing on solving the society problems. They are saying is that partly of their activities is to build their foundation for the future. They hope that consumer will remember the action when the economy returns to normal. So similarly, they are also treating their employees well. They are not actually reducing salaries or cut or lay off their employees, but still negotiating with their employees so that they hope that the company's reputation as an employer can attract talent that will be built a loyal workforce for their company. So corporate citizenship is actually among the trend that is being held by many entrepreneurs due to post-COVID. Secondly is the terms, they call it resourcefulness. So resourcefulness in the entrepreneurship context is defined as learned behavior, or they learn from what happened and change towards what they require us to do in order to sustain in the business and get good reputation among their consumers. And resourcefulness also relates to financial decision and social repertoires for dealing with problems in the pursuit of an opportunity. So whatever they can grab, they will grab as part of opportunity for them. So with that, they have to develop creative response to emerging challenge with the scarce resources that they've got. So resourcefulness also, of course, related to innovation. They have to become innovative. So the crisis create opportunities for business and make them innovative. And of course, resourcefulness also related to the way of doing work, the way of the job is being handled, the human resource management part, whereby working from home is new norm. And they look at it as cost reduction and other social benefits by doing so. Okay, so this is my illustration about what I term it as entrepreneurial trend anticipated model of post-COVID. Okay, so Again, if we look at on the current scenario, or even Malaysian government also focusing on social entrepreneurship, or also referred or relate to social innovation and social enterprise. Most of the companies nowadays has been looking on the perspective of their companies as part of social enterprise. So social enterprise is very much related to these two pillars, which is citizenship and resourcefulness. So, for citizenship, I have mentioned earlier, it is related to how you look at your business that benefit the societal well-being, and also, of course, people doing it due to emphasizing on their business reputation. And the resourcefulness is actually related to the innovativeness. They have to take the challenge, they have to take the crisis, and of course they have to become innovative. And the needs of technology push, no by hook or by crook, they have to take technology as part and parcel of their business. Otherwise they will be left behind. And the way they handle people, the way they handle their employee will be different. So also the human resource management is different. Managing the human resource is different as managing, people before the post-COVID. So I have looked on the Chinese trend on the technology push, whereby online shopping and entertainment actually received a major boost during the coronavirus shutdown. So performance like Alibaba, WeChat, and their associated ecosystem is very, very alarming. Okay? So we could say that so this technology push is among the most important element in order for new entrepreneurs to be not even successful, but also being sustained in the market. Okay, so now let's look at on the role of universities to tackle the trend of post-COVID. The reason why I share this with all the participants, because UMK is an entrepreneurial university, so we are also participate in the COVID during the crisis of COVID-19. So our lecturers is not just sitting down, working from home and doing teaching online, but we're also doing research to help the government and of course to help the frontliners to do their work efficiently. So 7, even 8 product has been produced during the 3 months of COVID-19. So we have hand sanitizer. We have even not only UMK, but also we work together with the prisoners and other groups or other agencies of the government to do or to make PPE suits. Okay, and we make intubation box, sanitizing box, face shield, and that is actually something that the university is not to be put aside to tackle the post-COVID-19. So government is actually looking up for the university to help the country in order not only to tackle COVID-19 crisis, but also to help on improving the economic condition. So I know, of course, everybody knows that most countries also offered stimulus package to their people as well as to the business. So do Malaysia. For UMK alone, we have receiving grants from the government under Pejana, they call it, to help improving the unemployed graduates of the Malaysian higher institution. UMK were given the task to help giving intervention projects or intervention programs to turn them into job creators, because we have experts, we have also facilities, we have the incubators at the university that be able to help the youth to change their mindset or even to turn into skilled workers and become entrepreneurs. So this is things that UMK is doing on the post-COVID-19. So probably we can work together, UIBE as well as UMK, with with the grant and mandate given to our government, but we still need experts from your university probably that can help our youth or our people so that they can survive, not being an employee, but also but being an employer by themselves. So probably later on we can discuss further what are the best, what are the projects or whatever we can work together. The money we have from our government, but we may need experts. We may need, like a think tank or whatever from on your side. Okay. So besides research collaboration, of course, we need the need of maximizing digital interactions for making learning productive and mutually beneficial. So online learning is now in think everywhere in higher learning institution, but we have to improve. There's a lot of room for improvement because it's like ad hoc that everybody is now using Zoom, Google Meet, and yet probably we can start establish a platform for future learnings. And also on this part, I would like to also share with our partners in China that we may receive Erasmus Plus grant on, they call it SIFU project, Strategic University Future Innovation Projects for teaching and learning, focusing on e-learning. And previously we have Erasmus Plus project amounting of 1.9 million euro that is to work on media literacy, which is to expose entrepreneurs as well as, of course, the youngsters on using media, especially using social media and so on. Okay, so which I think there's a lot university can do in helping the country due to this COVID-19. Okay, so as a conclusion, this is actually the statement made by the Bank for International Settlement, BIS. They said that future economic historians may describe the pandemic, which is COVID-19, as the defining moment of the 21st century. This is the moment that nobody can forget because there are pros and cons. But I hope that this moment will give us positive impact. So probably we could say, oh, COVID-19 has made Malaysia and China closer. And of course, this COVID-19 has made UIBE and UMK like a family. And so this is actually things that we need to look at on the positive side. And universities around the world are collaborating to address the immediate challenge of COVID-19. So this is about time for us to use our resources, people, materials, and facilities, and also data that we have so that we can help policymakers as well as public, to overcome whatever problems that we face. And of course, we hope that we can enhance potential of collaboration between UMK and UIBE. So with that, I think I would like to say thank you. So probably can open for question and answers after this. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Nick Maharin Nick Mohammed. Thank you very much for your speech on entrepreneurship and especially in post COVID-19 period. Now let's move to panel 4 by Professor Dr. Lü Yue from UIBE, China Institute for WTO Studies. Professor Lü, who is also a very famous economist in China, especially in the field of global value chain and trade and finance and multinationals and the environment. Now the floor is yours, Professor Lü, please.
Uh,
吕教授，我们现在听不到你的声音。吕教授，我们现在可以看到画面，但是听不到声音。
I think she's probably stuck. She's logging off and reboot again.
Yeah, actually maybe.
I think she has lost the connection.
Yeah, we can start the Q&A, you know.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, and I think we can continue our session. And you know, we have a Q&A part. You know, we've got some questions from. And I think here's the first question. What economic sectors are most disrupted in the new normal, and how to solve the problem? A question by colleague from University of Bengkulu, Indonesia. So, and I think our Professor Zhuang Gong may answer this question in response. Thank you.
Okay. What are the sectors most likely to be disrupted? Well, I mean, these are the usual suspects: the tourist industry, the airline industry, accommodations, hotel industry. These are, you know, first and foremost being affected so far. And I think in addition to this, a lot of small businesses around the you know, retail industry is also being greatly affected. I want to talk a little bit about the experiences of the 1918-1919 Spanish flu, as Professor Muhammad has alluded to earlier. You know, what's happening right now is very much like the Spanish flu. You know, even though people have been saying, well, we haven't seen the second round yet, but I think we're probably going to see a very long round. It doesn't matter, it's first round, second round, it's going to be continuous. And I don't think it's going to go away even by next spring in 2021. And I think there's some interesting experience out of the Spanish flu during that time. If you look back at history, the economic development history after the Spanish flu in some major industrial economics was fantastic, actually. You know, the American economic development during the entire 1930s was a really good boom period of stretch over 10 years. So this is clearly a natural disaster. And economic recovery after a natural disaster usually is of a V-shaped recovery, and it's going to be coming back like a vengeance. And I think there's also a distributional effect associated with this. In other words, the relatively well-off, the richer economies tend to perform very well after the pandemic, whereas the poorer countries tend to suffer a lot. In the 1930s, it was the United States, it was the European countries that are really benefited from, really experienced a very rapid recovery from the Spanish flu. And today, we're seeing, China and many industrialized countries, I would say, in Asia, like Japan and South Korea, I would expect these economies to be doing very well after the pandemic. But we also have to look at, these much poorer countries. Today, for example, the many African countries are really, really suffering, not just because of the blow to the local economy, but because of the currency depreciation, the debt problem, all these issues combined together, dealing a huge blow to these economies. This professor asked the second part of this question: how do we solve the problem? I think this is the precise area where the government should step in. Fiscal policy, monetary policy are precisely the moment to use for a crisis like this. So I think all governments need to work together to come up with strategies and policies to help with citizens, to help with companies, especially small and medium-sized companies, to weather through this storm. I just want to emphasize this is going to be a distributional effect that we have seen during the Spanish flu era. And we don't want to replicate the same experience. Richer countries need to help poorer countries to weather through this storm together.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for Professor Gong. Now let's move to Professor Lü Yue. Because of the internet problem, so maybe we can only have this voice program. So please, Professor Lü.
Okay, okay, now everyone can hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, yeah, that's right.
Okay, sorry for the technology stuff. Okay, I will continue from the quick review of COVID-19. And as of August 3rd, there are already more than 200 countries and regions have reported nearly 18 million cases to WHO. Although there are few new confirmed cases in